Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and today will come as no surprise to anyone. We're looking at a new track by Skynd. Yeah, they've just released a new track called Edmund Kemper. Anybody who's actually a member of their mailing list will have got this access to this video a few days earlier, as I did. And of course, we've covered everything from Skynd so far, and all of the tracks have been really very, very good. To date, though, Elisa Lam still remains the outlier, because most of all of the tracks, besides Elisa Lam, have been talking about serial killers or murderers, these sorts of horrible criminal sort of types. Elisa Lam remains the only track they've done about a victim. Directly about the victim. They've spoken about victims in other tracks, but Elisa Lam itself is talking only about the victim because it's still an unsolved crime. So, I'm actually curious to see if they'll ever actually do any more similar to that in future, because, that still stands out as a unique track out of the whole catalogue. And I mean, they've released to the public, I think they've released maybe 12 tracks now. Maybe 13, because there's normally 3 per, I suppose you can call it an EP. They've released Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3, and then they've released a couple of tracks after that. So it's either 12 or 13 tracks that they've released to date so far. But anyway, as I said, this track is about Edmund Kemper. Now, Edmund Kemper, or Edmund Emil Kemper III, was born in December 18th, 1948, and is an American serial killer who murdered 10 people. He murdered a 15-year-old girl, as well as his own mother and her best friend, from May 1972 up until April 1973. So, he was only doing it for a year, and he managed to kill 10 people. Yeah. And all of this was after Kemper was paroled for murdering his paternal grandparents when he was 15 years old. So, this guy's had some pretty serious issues from the get-go. Kemper was nicknamed the Co-Ed Killer, as most of his non-familial victims were female college students hitchhiking in the vicinity of Santa Cruz County, California. Kemper stands at a height of 6'9", that's really very, very tall. I mean, that's got to be quite an imposing figure. You see that guy coming towards you, that's gonna put the shits up you. And that's 2.06 meters for anybody who doesn't deal in feet and inches. Most of his murders included necrophilia and some incidents of rape. I don't know why I curled the R on that. That was totally inappropriate. Anyway, he was born in Burbank, California. He had a troubled upbringing. His parents divorced early in life. As a child, he moved to Montana with his mother, Clarnell, who kept Kemper locked in their basement, which had been frequented by rats. He ran away to reunite with his father, but his father had remarried around Christmas 1963 and sent Edmund to stay with his paternal grandparents, whom he later killed. It was there in August 1964, at the age of 15, that he murdered them. Following the murders, Kemper was briefly diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia by a court psychiatrist and sentenced to the Atascadero State Hospital as a criminally insane juvenile. He was released at the age of 21 after convincing psychiatrists that he was rehabilitated. Kemper was reportedly regarded as non-threatening by his future victims. He targeted young female hitchhikers during his killing spree, luring them into his vehicle and driving them to secluded areas where he would murder them before taking their corpses back to his home to be decapitated and dismembered and then subsequently violated. Kemper then murdered his mother and one of her friends before turning himself in to the authorities. Found sane and guilty at his trial in 1973, Kemper requested the death penalty for his crimes. Capital punishment was suspended in California at this time, and he instead received 8 concurrent life sentences. Since then, he has been incarcerated in California Medical Facility in Vacaville. No idea where it is. Kemper and Herbert Mullin overlapped into their 1972 and 1973 murder sprees, adding confusion to the police investigations and ending with both being arrested within a few weeks of each other after the deaths of 21 people. So I don't know who Herbert Mullin is, but apparently it would seem that his MO was very similar. So there we go. That's Edmund Kemper. He was not a very nice man, so it'd seem. But, you know, he knew that he was messed up, so he turned himself in. So, I mean, I would say you got to give him something for that, maybe, but no, he was a crazy person. Anyway, like I said, I've been rambling off quite a minute here. Like I said, I've always enjoyed Skynd's music. I'm really looking forward to this track, so we'll just jump into it and see what we've got. So, Edmund Kemper by Skynd.
It isn't that impossible in this society, and it happens. It happens. It happens. It happens.
One of these days, gonna follow through. Sepal in the brain, and I don't know what I'll do. Here's a little game, here's a deja vu. Bury her on Harriet, looking up at you. This is what you got, this is chemistry. A kettle on the stove's always gonna make a tea. A sticker on a hood, a chappy and a key. Are you fucking kidding me?
I can't stop. A little isn't enough. It's like drugs. A little isn't enough. You want more and more and more. You want more and more and more. I can't stop. I keep whipping them off. They go pop. I keep whipping them off. You want more and more and more. You want more and more and more.
Eeny, miny, moe,
Can't watch him grow. Chicken or the egg, or I guess it's kinda slow.
what about the kitten that I buried in the yard?
Should've seen it coming, should've known it from the start.
Ship me out of
Granny like a leopard to the sea. I'm a double whammy and I'm gonna make it free. Better take a test, better wait and see. Are you fucking kidding me?
I can't stop. A little isn't enough. It's like drugs. A little isn't enough. You want more and more and more. You want more and more and more. I can't stop. I keep whipping them off. They go pop. I keep whipping them off. You want more and more and more. You want more and more and more.
and at 6 gallons of wine a week. I thought it would help an addict, so to speak. Take your body from your head, you leave me without a choice. I thought it would help, but I can still hear your voice. I will be true, you will not be true. Show you how inferior men are. I will hurt you and then you to you. Show you how inferior men are. I will lock you into the basement. Show you how inferior men are. I suppose you want to sit up all night and talk wrong.
I can't stop. A little isn't enough. It's like drugs. A little isn't enough. You want more and more and more. You want more and more and more. I can't stop. I keep whipping them off. They go pop. I keep whipping them off. You want more and more and more. You want more and more and more.
Well, there you go. Edmund Kemper by Skynd. Now, this was quite an interesting track, really, because when I first looked at Skynd, when I looked at... I can never remember the name of the bloody track. But anyway, when I first looked at Skynd, you know, the dominant part of the song was like all these sort of effects and warps on her voice. But as they've released more and more tracks, she seems to be using her own natural voice a lot more. And in this track, it's almost entirely her with her natural singing voice. There's the odd bit of, you know, effects added to her voice, you know, the odd bit of warping and stuff. But for the most part, this song is actually her singing in her voice, you know, and she has got a very strong, very powerful voice, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, that makes this song quite different from a lot of previous tracks, you know. Even Gacy, I think that's the most recent one before this, John Wayne Gacy, you know, it had some of her clean vocals in it, but not to this level. So it's quite interesting that she's actually progressing more and more into using her own voice rather than relying on the effects. I mean, don't get me wrong, the effects do add like the menace and the, you know, the sort of weird elements that you would expect from these sorts of people that she's singing about. You know, it does add that kind of menace to it. But yeah, it's quite interesting that she's using her own voice a lot more now. Now, I do have lyrics for this, but I will say they are fan submitted. From what I can tell, though, for the most part, they do seem to be accurate. There's one or two things that I'm not sure about, but, you know, having listened to the track and read the lyrics along with it, they do seem to be mostly correct. So, it goes, one of these days, gonna follow through. Zapple in a brain, and I don't know what I'll do. Here's a little game, here's a deja vu. Bury her and Harriet looking up at you. This is what you get, this is chemistry. A kettle's on the stoves, always gonna make tea, always gonna make a tea. A sticker on a hood, a chappie and a key. That's it really. Are you fucking kidding me? So, one of these days gonna follow through. This sounds like, you know, the start of Kemper's life, you know, but this is like before he was 15, before he killed his grandparents. You know, one of these days he's going to follow through. So, you know, he's been tormented, he's been tortured, he's been bullied or whatever. And, you know, he's sitting there thinking, one of these days I'm going to actually kill somebody because, you know, I'm sick of this sort of thing. It says zapple in the brain. I'm not sure what that means, but it says, I don't know what I'll do. Here's a little game. Here's a deja vu. So I don't know what I'll do. So I don't know what I'm going to do when I eventually snap. But when I snap, you know, I'm going to do something. Bury on Harriet looking up at you. So I'm guessing maybe one of his victims was buried in a place called Harriet, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't see that in any of these things that I read up. So yeah. You know, that's the sort of build up to who he is. And then it goes, I can't stop, a little isn't enough. It's like drugs, a little isn't enough. You want more and more and more. You want more and more and more. I can't stop, I keep whipping them off. They go pop, I keep whipping them off. You want more and more and more. You want more and more and more. So, I can't stop, a little is never enough. This is like, I imagine this would be the equivalent to saying, like, murdering people is like a drug to him. You know, he's addicted to the feeling, the rush he gets when he does it. You know, it says that it's like drugs. A little isn't enough. You know, you want more and more and more. So, you know, the thrill that he gets from killing these people, you know, is like a drug to him. He says, I can't stop. I keep whipping them off. They go pop. And, you know, you want more and more and more. Then he goes tick, 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 tick. Eeny, miny, mo. Kick a kid. Watch him grow. Chicken or the egg? I guess it's kind of slow. What about the kitten that I buried in the yard? You should have seen it coming. You should have known it from the start. Ship me out to granny like a leper to the sea. I'm a double whammy and I'm gonna make it 3. Better take a test. Better wait and see. That's it, really. Are you fucking kidding me? So again, this is like, again, what sort of caused him to develop into who he was. It's like eeny miny mo, kick a kid, watch him grow. So like he was badly treated by his parents, as we already discovered when we spoke about him at the beginning. Kick a kid, and watch him grow. So you beat a kid, you bully this kid, and you watch him grow into being a sort of cold-hearted killer sort of person. Kick him and watch what happens. Chicken or the egg. So it's like that's like what came first, the neglect or his psychopathic tendencies. Was he a psychopath, which is why his parents bullied and neglected him, or did they bully and neglect him, which is what turned him into the psychopath? That could be possibly what that bit means. I don't know. But then he goes, what about the kitten that I buried in the yard? So this is often cited as like one of the key factors to notice if someone is going to grow up to be a sort of a murderer, serial killer, that sort of thing. A lot of serial killers do tend to torture and murder animals in their younger years. And, almost every serial killer on file has at some point, almost, I'm not saying all of them, but almost, has at some point had a connection to torturing or murdering small animals. And it says there, should have seen it coming, should have known it from the start. So, he's either saying, I should have known that this is what I'd become, or you should have known that this is what I'd become if you kept treating me the way that you did. And it says there, ship me out to granny like a leper out to sea. So it's like nobody wants him, so they want nothing to do with him. His mother's a horrible person who treats him badly, locks him in the basement. So he went to look for his dad, and his dad turned around and goes, nah, not touching, I don't want you, go to your grandma. And, he just felt unwanted and unloved. So, yeah. It says, I'm a double whammy and I'm going to make it 3. I'm not entirely sure what that bit means. Is a double whammy killing his grandparents and then he's like, I'm going to kill more? Maybe? I don't know. And then it goes back into that. I can't stop. A little isn't enough. It's like drugs. A little isn't enough. I want more and more and more. You want more and more and more. I can't stop. I keep whipping them off. They go pop. I keep whipping them off. You want more and more and more. You want more and more and more. And then it goes tick, 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 tick. Now, in the lyrics I have here, it says tick, 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 pop. But to me, it sounded like she said tick, 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 boom. But there is a sort of little bit of debate there, because she does say earlier in the song, they go pop, I keep whipping them off. So I'm not entirely sure which one it is, but tick, 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 pop, tick, 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 pop, tick, 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 tick. And then the sort of the rhythm of the song changed, and it goes, 6 young women died, 6 gallons of wine a week. I thought it would happen in a matter, so to speak. Take your body from your head, you leave me without a choice. I thought it would help, but I can still hear your voice. I will beat you, humiliate you, show you how inferior men are. I will hurt you and belittle you, show you how inferior men are. I will lock you in the basement, show you how inferior men are. I suppose you want to sit up all night and talk now? No. Good night. So, 6 young women died, along with the other people that he killed, his 2 grandparents and his mother and her friend. So he killed 6 other young women, 6 gallons of wine a week. Was he maybe using the wine to lure them? Was he maybe just getting drunk before he did these things? I'm not entirely sure. I thought it would happen in a matter, so to speak. Take your body from your head, you leave me without a choice. And like we said, he often decapitated the bodies before doing unspeakable things to them. You leave me without a choice. So he felt compelled to do it. He thought decapitating them would help, but, I can still hear their voice. And this is another common trait when it comes to serial killers. They will often cover their face or decapitate them to sort of disassociate from the, so that they're not necessarily, so that they don't see them as a person. It's more common in a serial killer who's murdering people from their own family or someone that they're directly intimate with. They'll destroy them, so destroy their faces so that they don't feel that connection with the person, but it can happen to serial killers who do it to complete strangers as well, because they don't want to relate to that person. They don't want to look into that person's eyes and then think, what have I done? So they remove that aspect. So he's saying there, I thought removing your head would help, but I can still hear your voice. So, I thought that would help me disassociate from you, but I can still, there's still that aspect to it. And of course, with him being a schizophrenic, that probably didn't help either. And then it goes into this, but I will beat you, humiliate you, show you how inferior men are. So again, this seems to come back to his mother and, all the people that sort of abused him before he became this full-fledged serial killer. It's like, I will beat you and humiliate you, show you how inferior men are. I will hurt you and belittle you. These are all things that his mother, excuse me, these are all things that his mother did to him. I mean, it even says that I will lock you in the basement, which we know is something that happened to him. I suppose you want to sit up all night and talk now. I've got no interest in that, because she says, no, good night. I don't want to sit up and talk to you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. You're a horrible little creature, and, I don't want you to be part of my life, sort of thing. And it goes back into that tick, 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 pop, tick, 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 pop, tick, 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 tick. And then back into the chorus. I can't stop, a little isn't enough. It's like drugs, a little isn't enough. You want more and more and more. You want more and more and more. I can't stop, I keep whipping them off. They go pop, I keep whipping them off. You want more and more and more. You want more and more and more. And then at the end of the video, it showed Kemper sort of walking around this hallway looking at portraits of all the people that he had killed, and so it was an interesting song. It was a good piece of music. Something about the actual music itself felt a lot more, I'm not sure how to describe it. There was a more almost dance-like music element to it. It was very electronica heavy. A lot of their previous tracks, they've had a lot of sort of heavy sort of guitars and sort of that sort of aspect to it. There's been a sort of mix of metal and electronica in there. This felt a lot heavier on the electronica side than the guitar sort of elements that they normally have. But I still really, really liked it. I think it's a great piece of music. Again, they made an absolutely fantastic video. Every video that they've made has been outstanding. They something I really appreciate about them is they take their time over each piece of music that they create, because all the tracks that they've released them like several months apart. I mean, it's been somewhere between 6 to 9 months since they released the John Wayne Gacy track, so they take their time, craft a piece of music, make sure it sounds great, then they make the video for it, make sure that's great, then they release that one song on its own before rushing off to make another piece of music. No matter how popular they're getting, no matter how much praise and maybe even begging from fans, they're not rushing their art. They're taking their time to make sure that it's a great piece of music, that it's a great video before releasing it. And that's something I really respect. Because you get some of these bands. I mean, let's take Cradle of Filth for example. In their early years with things like Principle of Evil Made Flesh, Vampire, Dusk and Her Embrace, and Cruelty and the Beast. These albums were released 2, maybe 3 years apart. But as soon as they started gaining traction, when they hit albums like Midian, Thornography and things like that, they were releasing albums like one a year, sometimes even more. They were releasing a lot of music very, very quickly because they were getting very, very famous. They were getting very, very popular. They were gaining traction. So they were churning out more and more and more music. And as much as I love Cradle of Filth, I do have to say I do think their music suffered for a bit because they were trying to meet demand. They were going, right, we're really popular at the moment, let's capitalise on this. Whereas Skynd here, they're going, right, we're getting popular, people are really loving our music, but we don't want the music to suffer, so we're going to take our time. And, when we release it, people are still going to really, really appreciate it. So it's best to take your time over it and make sure it's perfect. And that's something I really admire about this group. they're keeping consistent with the quality of their music and making sure that it's good, that it's perfect before it's released. Because I mean, when you actually look at this video on YouTube, you see that the actual video itself was uploaded in April, and it's now June. So, you know, this has been sitting there ready for a while, but they wanted to make sure it was right before they released it, and you've got to respect them for that. But anyway, another great piece of music by an absolutely fantastic band who hopefully I'm going to be seeing in August when I go to Bloodstock, because it says that they're going to be playing on the Thursday. So fingers crossed I'll actually get to see Skynd live. But anyway, yeah, another great piece of music. And yeah, don't know what else I can say about that, so I'll leave that as it is. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribe if you're not already, because it really would help this channel out. I mean, as it stands at the moment, I think only about 10% of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed to the channel. And as a result of this, all my videos are sort of getting lost in the YouTube algorithm, and, you know, people can't even find the videos to watch. You know, I've had a couple of comments recently saying, oh my god, I finally found this track that you released X amount of months ago. You know, I finally found it. You know, because people aren't getting it suggested to them, because, you know, people are watching the videos but they're not liking and subscribing, you know, and it really does help me out. You know, you know, just to click a like takes a fraction of a second. You know, subscribing, it doesn't cost you anything, only takes a fraction of a second, you know, and it really does help me out. So if you could like and subscribe, you know, I would really, really appreciate it. But yeah, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you all very, very much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.
I can't stop. A little isn't enough. It's like